In the ancient times, on the day of the red crimson moon, the greatest hero, bearing the strongest mask, fell. His body was severed as he failed to defeat the evil gods. With half his body crawling, he dragged himself toward a towering monument with one purpose in mind. He hoped that whoever inherited his mask in the future, be it 10,000 years later, or countless ages beyond, would master its power to the fullest and use it to destroy the evil gods of destruction. This mask, known as Cayman, was one of the strongest in the ancient world. As tears streamed down his face, the hero begged whoever would inherit it to carry on his duty. With his final breath, he passed down his will to vanquish the gods of destruction before giving up his ghost. Thousands of years later, in the modern world, a young orphan named Haku, the main character of this story, spent most of his time buried in books. Despite his youth, the heavy bags under his eyes made him look as old as my grandfather. Fascinated by ancient history and artifacts, Haku stumbled across legends of the common mask. His relentless research led him to the realization that the mask was said to choose its new owner on the night of the red crimson moon. That same evening, bullies from Haku's school dragged him along, forcing him to guide them to the rumored location of the mask. Their plan was reckless. They intended to raid a museum in search of the powerful artifact. Haku, though hesitant, complied, knowing it wasn't a good idea to break into a museum at midnight. Yet, the threat of the bullies left him no choice. After bypassing the museum's security, the group entered a room filled with ancient masks of all kinds. The bullies turned to Haku, accusing him of leading them on a wild goose chase. "You said the mark would appear here tonight," snapped the boy in the red cap. Haku stammered. He's not sure, it's just an urban legend. His friend Miriam, who had followed them, crossed her arms and asked, "What kind of urban legend is this, Haku?" Haku hurriedly flipped through his research notebook and explained. According to historical records, the mask has existed since ancient times, waiting for someone worthy to inherit it. Those who succeed gain inhuman powers, but those who fail are consumed by the mask and die. Miriam raised an eyebrow. So this ridiculous urban legend is what kept him up for 3 nights researching? Her words stung, cutting through Haku's pride as he slumped to the ground. But Miriam wasn't done. And all this running errands for bullies, just so they can upload it to their YouTube channel? Haku apologized profusely. He's sorry for dragging her into this. It's fine, Miriam said with a shrug. She just can't stand watching them bully him like that. As they spoke, the red-capped bully grabbed Haku by the shoulder and snarled, "So it's fake after all, huh? Useless orphan, giving them wrong information." Haku bowed his head, mumbling, "He's sorry, he'll do better next time." "Next time?" The bully scoffed. "You're worthless. Just hurry up and get yourself killed already. No one cares about someone like you." Miriam clenched her fists, angered by the insults hurled at Haku. She snapped, "Seriously? Why are they whining like dogs? Oh, she get it now. They're scared, aren't they? Scared the legend might be true and they can't handle the outcome." The red-capped bully's face flushed with anger. "Shut up, stop pretending to be Haku's guardian." Yeah, Miriam shot back, smirking. "I get it. You're all bark, no bite." With a sigh, Haku muttered to himself. It was always the same. He ended up showing his uncool side to Miriam, and he hated it. But as his thoughts spiraled, Miriam interrupted, asking, "So, when exactly will the masked earl appear?" Haku replied, "He thinks it'll show up soon, on the night of the crimson moon, when the moon is at its highest. The masked earl appears then to bestow the ancient mask." Miriam raised an eyebrow. "The ancient mask, huh?" She pointed at a nearby mask. "Is it this one?" Haku shook his head. "No. That's from the Mayan civilization." She pointed at another. "This one?" "No," Haku replied. "That's from ancient Roman theater." "What about this one?" she asked again, gesturing toward another mask. "That's from Japanese knock plays," Haku explained. Miriam smirked. "You know way too much about masks and stuff." Her tone turned cheeky as she pointed to yet another mask and added, "What about this?" Haku, shining his torch on the next mask, noticed a suspicious, half-broken one. His brows furrowed as he studied it. "You don't know anything about this one," he admitted, apologetic. Miriam suddenly asked, "Honestly, is his knowledge just a way to avoid being alone? He's been like that forever, haven't he?" Haku hesitated before answering, "Yes, but it's okay. Even if he's being used or made to run errands, he can endure anything as long as he's not abandoned, as long as he's not left alone like back then." With a small smile, he added, "Gathering late at night for a silly urban legend. Just being able to be with someone like this is more than enough for him." Hearing his words, Miriam blushed faintly and smiled, but Haku blushed harder. He stammered, "No, maybe that's a bit of a lie. He's not just happy being with anyone. He's actually happy being with Miriam, only her." Before Miriam could respond, an ominous figure resembling a mask appeared behind her. Haku froze, horrified. Without a second thought, he grabbed Miriam's hand and pulled her away from the spot. They tumbled to the ground with a heavy thud. Haku's voice shook. What the hell is that? The masked figure began to shift, forming into a more humanoid shape. Then it spoke, its voice cold and menacing. So they all call him an urban legend, huh? How flattering to be passed down like this. The figure's grin twisted into something malevolent. So, tonight, does anyone want to see the fate of wearing his mask? It was the masked earl. The two bullies who had been watching began laughing. Wow, is that the masked earl? No way. One of them pulled out a phone to livestream. Another sneered at Haku. Hey, hurry up and get killed, dude. They'll make him famous on YouTube. The masked earl's smile grew darker. Oh, don't worry. He'll start with them first. The bullies froze as the earl sprinted toward them. It's time to see if they're worthy of his masks. What the hell? One of the bullies shouted. Why is this creep coming for us? The masked earl placed a mask on the guy's face and bang, the mask rejected him and he was consumed by fire. Before they could run, the masked earl placed a small mask on the other guy's face. The bully screamed, but in seconds, his body crumbled into sand. The earl scoffed. Pathetic. Nothing but side characters in this story. He turned his gaze back to Haku and Miriam, his grin widening. Now, the real deal. That's you, isn't it? Haku's heart pounded as the earl pointed at him. But then, unexpectedly, the earl shifted his focus to Miriam. It's been a while, hasn't it? Miriam's face paled. Me? How does he know her? Sweat trickled down her temple as the earl traced a finger in the air toward her. Now then, the earl said, it's time for her true self to awaken. And bang, lightning crackled across Miriam's face and body. She screamed in pain, her body trembling violently. Then, with a deafening explosion, the ground shook, and Miriam collapsed into unconsciousness. The masked earl caught her before she hit the ground. He cradled her limp form as he muttered, There's no mask here suitable for you, Miriam. The only true mask worthy of you. He will pass it down himself. As he began to leave, Haku staggered to his feet and grabbed the earl's cloak. Wait, he shouted. Where are you taking Miriam? He demanded, but the earl didn't respond. Instead, it roared, You're in my way. With a deafening bang, it pushed Haku backward with overwhelming force. Haku crashed to the ground. His body sprawled as he watched the shadowy figure drag Miriam away. His voice cracked as he yelled, Wait! No! Desperation gripped him and he tried to crawl toward her, but his limbs felt heavy and powerless against such unimaginable strength. He clenched his fists, frustration and helplessness burning inside him. Looking around, Haku decided he had no choice. He would have to test the masks, a source of rumored power that only those brave or foolish enough dared to attempt. Recalling the legends, he muttered, Those who inherit the mask gain inhuman strength. Without hesitation, Haku began testing the marks one after another. The first mark he tried caused blood to pour from his nose and seep from his head. The bleeding was so profuse he knew continuing could kill him, but Haku gritted his teeth and said, He don't care what it takes. If he wear the mask, even someone like him can gain power. Despite the mounting injuries and the weakening state of his body, he refused to give up. Each mask tested brought him closer to collapse. Blood trailed behind him as he crawled forward, his vision blurring. Memories flooded his mind. He remembered being abandoned by his parents and left all alone in the world. Miriam had been the only person who looked at him with kindness. The rest, they only met him with disdain. Tears streamed down his blood-streaked face as he whispered, He can't let the masked earl take her. Not like this. They had been together through everything, good times and bad. He thought of Miriam, who had protected him even from bullies when they were kids. She had been his shield, his light, the only one who saw him as more than an orphan or a burden. As Haku's body trembled and his strength waned, he saw it. That suspiciously looking mask, which he had no information about. Crawling closer, he stared at it, his last hope. In his mind, he heard Miriam's laughter, her words of comfort, and the memories of her unwavering belief in him. With shaking hands, he reached out and placed the mask on his eye. And bang, the air around him changed. Multiple eyes appeared, surrounding him in a terrifying display. Feathers burst from his body, swirling in a storm of power that obliterated the ground beneath him. The building shook violently as Haku's body vibrated. Though it wasn't pain he felt, it was power. Tremendous, overwhelming power surged through him, lighting his veins like fire. He stood upright, the mask embracing him like a long-lost ally. The mask had accepted him. He didn't fully understand what he had become, but deep inside he knew. For the first time in his life, he wasn't powerless. Meanwhile, as the masked earl fled through the sky, he kept singing joyfully, Wow, bountiful harvest, bountiful harvest. He chuckled to himself, astonished. Who would have thought he'd meet Miriam again in a place like this? The earl exclaimed with a wide grin. But his joy was short-lived. Suddenly, he noticed something rapidly approaching him with immense force. Turning back, his eyes widened. It was Haku. Haku didn't waste any time. With one swift, powerful punch to the masked Earl's neck, he sent both the Earl and Miriam plummeting toward the ground. As they fell, Haku sprinted through the air, aiming to catch Miriam. However, the masked Earl recovered just in time, dodging Haku's grasp and evading the attack. Haku didn't relent. Punches flew in rapid succession, each strike coming from different angles. Yet the masked Earl proved to be a seasoned fighter, skillfully deflecting every blow. Frustration crept into the Earl's voice as he growled, "Why are you so persistent? Just give up already." Desperate to escape, the masked Earl attempted to flee again, but as he thought he'd gotten away, Haku surged forward with lightning speed, grabbing hold of the Earl's clothing. With every ounce of strength, Haku hurled the Earl away, forcing him to release Miriam. Miriam began free-falling from the sky. Haku, his heart racing, sprinted after her at blinding speed, yelling with determination. Just as she was inches from disaster, Haku activated his mysterious powers. Feathers erupted from his body as if summoned by sheer will. With newfound agility, he managed to catch Miriam mid-air. Just as he was about losing balance, he used the buildings around him as stepping stone to reduce the force of the fall. Then he landed successfully without scratch. The masked Earl, regaining his balance, scowled at Haku. "He is starting to become a real nuisance," he muttered under his breath. Determined, the Earl sent a barrage of ghostly clones to attack. Haku shielded Miriam, bracing himself as the area exploded around them. Emerging from the smoke, the masked Earl smirked. Now time to take Miriam back and leave this place for good. But his confidence shattered when Haku sprinted toward him with unrelenting speed, his eyes blazing with fury. Haku grabbed the Earl by the face, slamming him into the ground before lifting him into the air. As they ascended, the masked Earl chuckled nervously. "Oh no, my mask! They're coming off!" Haku paused, confused. What the hell? How is that possible? The Earl burst into laughter. "I'm just kidding." His mocking tone only fueled Haku's anger. "Now tell me," the Earl said, his voice growing serious, "where did Haku find his own mask?" Haku glared at him. "He don't know where it came from. But first, who the hell are you, really? What even are you?" The masked Earl sighed, raising his hands as though offering a truce. My apologies for the late introduction." He spread his arms, and masks began glowing across his body. He then said that he's merely a humble merchant of masks. For ages, he've searched for someone worthy to inherit this special power. His tone darkened as he gestured toward Miriam. And now, it seems he found her. He must take her back with him. As the Earl turned to leave, Haku gripped his arm. "You're not taking her anywhere," Haku roared. His voice carried the weight of his fury as he hurled the masked Earl toward the ground with bone-shaking force. Sprawled on the ground, the masked Earl stared up at Haku in disbelief. What the hell? This boy, he's already mastered the mask? It's as if they were crafted just for him. Then, shaking his head, he raised his hands in surrender. Fine, I give up. But let me warn you, Haku, many will come for you now. Many will try to steal your weapon." Haku's eyes narrowed. "What weapon?" The masked Earl smirked, nodding toward Miriam. "She's the weapon, and he've barely scratched the surface of the storm he invited." Meanwhile, the police had surrounded the museum. They raided and inspected it in an effort to trace the thief responsible for the robbery. The leader of the police squad, a stern-looking officer, was on a call with his superior. Over the phone, he reported that by the time his team arrived, there was no sign of the thief. With unwavering determination, he assured his leader, "Whoever stole those masks, whether they're half dead or alive, they will catch them." Ending the call, the officer looked up with a serious expression and muttered to himself that the thief shouldn't think they could escape the public security police. Turning to his walkie-talkie, he commanded his subordinates to begin the search immediately. Their synchronized reply, "Yes, sir," echoed, as they dispersed to carry out his orders. On the other hand, Haku was fleeing across rooftops, carrying Miriam in his arms. The moonlight illuminated their escape as they leaped from building to building. Miriam began to stir, her body shaking slightly as she showed signs of waking up. Haku urged her, "Wake up already. We're being chased. Now isn't the time to sleep." Miriam's eyes fluttered open, her vision blurry. She looked up at Haku, confused. "Why are you carrying me? What's happening?" she murmured. Before she could process her situation, a sharp pain struck her head, causing her to wince. Concerned, Haku asked, "Are you okay? Hang on, he'll take her to the hospital." But Miriam shook her head in panic. "No, not the hospital. Not the police. Please, don't take me there." Haku frowned but respected her plea. He told her to wait a little longer. They would get to a safe place. Miriam, now sitting upright, looked at him in astonishment. "Did you save me?" she asked softly. When Haku nodded, she thanked him and insisted she was fine. "She'll just go home and rest," she added, trying to stand. But in her disoriented state, both she and Haku had forgotten they were still in the sky. As she stepped forward, she suddenly realized there was no ground beneath her feet and let out a terrified scream. Haku reacted instantly. "Miriam!" he shouted, diving after her. With remarkable speed, he caught her mid-air. Using his body to shield her, he took the brunt of the fall, landing on his back with a loud thud. As they landed, Haku asked, "Are you okay?" But before she could respond, Miriam had fainted again. Lying there, Haku remembered her desperate plea not to involve the hospital or police. He couldn't help but wonder, who is Miriam? Why is everyone after her? Before he could dwell on these questions, his phone vibrated in his pocket. But I wonder how tight is our MC's pocket for the phone to survive all that flying without falling. He pulled out the phone and saw the caller ID. It was Urushi Sujuro, the student council president of Christ's High School. Later, at the school's nurse's office, Haku carefully laid Miriam down on a bed to rest. Urushi, holding a cup of coffee, handed it to Haku. "You look exhausted," he said calmly. Haku accepted the cup, nodding in gratitude. "Thanks." But why did Urushi call him at this hour? They've barely even talked before. Urushi sipped his own coffee before explaining. Someone in town reported seeing a boy in their school uniform wandering around late at night. More importantly, he heard Haku managed to protect Miriam and bring her back safely. That's impressive. Haku's cheeks flushed slightly. "It's nothing. He just wanted to help." Urushi smiled faintly. Still, he thought it's best to call the police. They're on their way now. Haku's expression shifted to one of alarm. The police? But Miriam didn't want that. Urushi shrugged. It's for her own safety. The mask earl, or whoever else might come after her again. It's smarter to let the police handle things, don't you think? Haku hesitated but reluctantly agreed. You're probably right, but he's still not sure. Urushi placed a reassuring hand on Haku's shoulder. Stay here and watch over her. He'll wait outside for the police. With that, Urushi left the room, leaving Haku alone with Miriam. Sitting by the bedside, Haku looked down at his hands, his mind racing. He glanced at the strange mask and muttered to himself. Earlier, he was so desperate to protect Miriam. It didn't even feel like him. He wondered, what is this mask? Can he really handle something so dangerous? For now, he decided to push those thoughts aside, slipping the mask into his pocket. As he gradually closed his eyes, he murmured, finally, he can breathe easy and rest for a bit. But peace was fleeting. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the window, casually saying, "Good evening." Haku's heart nearly leapt out of his chest. His fear was justified as the figure shattered the glass and stepped inside, revealing himself as a police officer. The officer, wearing a grim expression, flashed a badge and greeted Haku once more. "We're the public security force," the officer stated. Haku glanced outside, his unease deepening as countless policemen flooded the area, their presence suffocating. What the hell? Haku thought. Why are there so many of them, and what does public security want here? The policemen ignored Haku entirely, walking past him like he didn't exist. They weren't there to arrest him but had come for something else. Or someone else. A chilling realization hit Haku. Where's the council president? It didn't take long for the truth to surface. The council president had betrayed them, aligning with public security. The police leader stormed into the room where Miriam was hiding, tearing down the curtains. Without hesitation, he seized Miriam, hoisting her into his arms with an unsettling smile. "Hey, what are you doing?" Haku shouted, his voice trembling with both anger and desperation. "She's the victim. Why are you taking her?" The police leader smirked, his tone laced with mockery. "Victim? You don't know anything, do you? You were supposed to hide her, right? Well, don't worry, he'll hide her very well." Haku's mind raced. Something was terribly wrong. "Wait," he begged, chasing after them as they tried to leave. The police leader's expression darkened. He stopped and shoved Haku to the ground with ease. "Listen carefully," the officer said. "You're opposing the state. Do you even realize what you're doing? Touch us, and you'll be arrested for obstructing official duties." Haku struggled to stand, his frustration mounting. "Why are you taking Miriam? She hasn't done anything wrong." The officer chuckled, his laughter loud and unsettling. "Wrong? Oh, she's done plenty. She's a criminal. And if Haku thinks she's just some victim, then he's even more clueless than he thought." Haku's stomach churned. A criminal? She was attacked by the masked earl. The mention of masked earl made the officer laugh even harder. Oh, you poor, naive brat. He scratched his head, amused by Haku's ignorance. Does he even know what Miriam is? She's not just a criminal, she's a weapon. And he, her friend, don't even know. Haku froze. His mind struggled to process the words. A weapon? How is Miriam a weapon? The officer sneered. This is a world you have no business stepping into, kid. Stay out of it. You're a nobody, and if he defy him again, he'll make sure Haku is treated like the criminal he seems so desperate to protect. And so he began leaving. As they carried on, Haku could feel himself sinking deeper into a chaotic world. What the hell is happening all of a sudden? How is Miriam a criminal? And how in the world is she defying the states? His thoughts raced further. How is Miriam even considered a weapon? None of it made sense. But no, it wasn't over yet. Haku stood firm, ready to fight, his eyes blazing with the ominous mask. Now he can see it. Now he understands that none of this matters to him. None of it mattered at all. He began running. With the speed of light, he snatched Miriam away from the grasp of the police leader and bolted, refusing to look back. But before he could even glance upward, the police leader had already activated his own mask, his aura charged with aggression, and was closing in to attack. And then, bang! The police leader's attack smashed into the ground, sending debris flying in every direction. The force was relentless as the officer unleashed a flurry of punches, each one aiming to corner Haku. But it seemed our MC's speed was a step ahead. Haku dodged each strike with precise movements, weaving through the barrage as if it were a game of tag. The police leader, visibly agitated, deactivated his mask and barked at Haku, his voice laced with frustration. Why the hell are you wearing a mask like that? How is a little nobody wearing something like that? But then the atmosphere shifted. Haku's demeanor changed, his voice calm but sharp. Nobody? Who are you talking about? The police officer said it's time for him to get real. Since Haku is a nuisance, no need to arrest him. He will just execute Haku right away. But our MC said to himself that there's no need to fight, right? He just need to run and escape. In an instant, he turned back to flee with full speed ahead, but the police officer caught up to him immediately. He grabbed Haku by the collar and slammed him to the ground with a loud bang. As Haku groaned in pain, the police officer didn't even let him breathe as he launched another attack, but our MC quickly dodged the attack. If not, his head would have been mashed potato. Haku then said to himself that this guy is fast, beyond human limits. Right now our MC was cornered. He wondered how he could escape from this spot. As if reading his mind, the officer asked if running is all he can do? He said Haku is just a kid who's never even thrown a punch. He will teach us how it's done now. As he clenched his fist like Mayweather, he launched a powerful attack towards Haku. Upon seeing this, our MC knew that at this rate the attack would also hit Miriam, so he quickly raised her up, and the blow landed on his stomach, with blood spilling from his mouth, and he fell on his knees. In a mocking tone, the officer told him to go on, be a gentleman, don't bother acting cold in front of your friend, it doesn't matter anyway, since he would be saying goodbye to her soon. Upon hearing this, Haku became angry. He knew running wasn't an option anymore. With a surge of anger and determination, Haku decided that if escape wasn't an option, he would fight. The mask on his face glowed, releasing an overwhelming aura. Feathers of light floated around him, with additional eyes appearing on the mask as his power awakened. The officer's confidence wavered as he took a step back. What the hell is this kid? Haku placed Miriam gently on the ground, his confidence unwavering. You want to fight? He said coldly. Then let's see if you can handle me now. On the other hand, Urushi was walking down the school hallway, murmuring to himself that everyone has a hidden side, that's why they all wear a mask. Just then, we could all see a mask in his hand, glowing with a menacing power. Now, back to the battlefield. Our MC, standing firm, declared that if they wanted to fight, they should start already. It turned out that the mask was speaking through our MC's body. It cursed the police officer, asking what was wrong with him, even though the mask the officer is using was a replica of the original Cayman mask. The officer, enraged, yelled back, "What the hell, you shouldn't mess with me." His fist shot out in anger, launching an attack towards Haku, who stood unfazed, radiating a menacing aura. He warned the officer to stop. Haku, noticing the trajectory of the officer's attack, easily blocked it and evaded, sending the officer crashing to the ground. As the officer fell, he muttered, "What the hell is going on? How did this little boy manage to block his attack?" Our MC then remarked that he had discovered something. The more the eye of the mask opened, the more his physical abilities and sensory skills improved. Strange strength welled up within him, fueled by anger and a desire to protect Miriam. Blazing with power, he launched an attack at the officer, shouting, "Your mask is similar too, right?" Haku grabbed the officer's mask and punched him to the ground. As the mask flew off, he swiftly sprang towards it and shattered it in an instant. The officer, seething with rage, yelled at Haku to stay out of it. "What the hell is wrong with him?" he demanded. "Who is he to Miriam to step in like this?" Our MC stood firm, saying, "He and Miriam, the relationship is something that can't be described. He can't explain it to him." He then added coldly, "From now on, this is not a matter you should be involved in." With that, he delivered a deafening kick to the officer's cheek, causing a thunderous explosion. The officer fell to the ground, blood spilling from his mouth. Haku didn't stop. He kept landing blows, and finally, with a powerful kick, sent the officer flying distance away, crashing into a wall. The officer lay motionless, struggling to breathe. One of the officer's subordinates rushed to his side, shouting for the others to grab their weapons, as they all armed themselves. But in this situation, can gun really work? Or are the officers dumb? Meanwhile, our MC saw the officers coming from a distance. Approaching Miriam, he gently lifted her and looked at her with a soft expression. Blood was spilling from his mouth, but he asked, "Shall we run away together?" His blood dripped onto her face. Seeing this, he apologized, saying he would clean it up. Just as he was about to do so, Miriam's eyes fluttered open. She looked at him in surprise, noticing the blood on his face and the mask he wore. "What's going on?" she wondered aloud. But that wasn't the main concern. She noticed the police officer on the ground some meters away, and the recurring image of the mask in her mind. Suddenly, Miriam's body began to vibrate violently. Haku, confused and startled, wondered what was happening. Then, with a loud bang, Miriam exclaimed, "She is the one! She's finally awakened!" By now, the remaining police officers had caught up to them, yelling that they should kill Haku immediately. But just then, a voice rang out, commanding them to stop. In an instant, the environment was frozen, the officers paralyzed in place. They stood in shock, unsure of what was happening. Emerging from the shadows, the voice told the officers that the order was not to kill, but to capture Haku. Upon hearing this, the officers nodded in agreement, replying, "Yes, Commander." Seeing who it was, Haku yelled, "What the hell, isn't he a student?" To everyone's surprise, the figure revealed himself to be Urushi, the school council president. He explained that he hadn't intended to reveal his identity, but circumstances had forced his hand. He then turned to Miriam and stated that he had been waiting for her to awaken all this time. Slowly, he walked over to her, pausing for a moment before saying, "Congratulations, first child. You are the child of the first generation." In one of the most notorious organizations in the world, a man wearing a veil walked down a dimly lit passage. Entering a specific room, he hesitated before announcing, "Excuse me, I'm here to report." His words seemed to echo in the empty space, directed at a vacant table and set of chairs. Suddenly, ominous figures materialized at the table, their faces adorned with eyes that stared unblinkingly. These figures were none other than the leaders of the 13 tribes. The veiled man began, "Just a moment ago he received confirmation. The seed of the first generation has sprouted." One of the figures leaned forward and said that he should bring the child of the first generation here. Elsewhere, Urushi had already captured Miriam. They placed her on a bus, preparing to deliver her to their superiors and the 13 tribe leaders. Among the leaders, a white-haired man, one of the organization's strongest warriors, addressed his subordinates. "Gather yourselves, head to the rally points. They'll pick her up in London." Meanwhile, our MC remained frozen in place. He had been paralyzed and could neither move nor breathe properly. The cold gripped him, and panic set in. If he stayed like this, he would surely freeze to death. Haku's mind raced as he worried about Miriam. Is she still alive? The icy chill reminded Haku of his past. After being abandoned by his parents, he was later adopted by a woman and her family, but his new life was no less cruel. From a young age, he was made to run endless errands. Once, he cooked a meal for them, only for the woman to throw the plate away in disgust. "What kind of garbage is this? What did you put in it?" she snapped. Does he hate them that much to cook such misery? Despite his tears, Haku denied hating them. "I don't hate you," he whispered. "Don't talk back to your elders," the woman retorted, dragging him to a closet. "If you want food, you better work properly." With a loud bang, she locked him inside. Her children laughed mockingly as Haku begged to be let out, apologizing repeatedly. That night, as the family ate cake without him, he remained locked in the closet, shivering and crying. Later, long after everyone had gone to sleep, Haku managed to escape. Quietly, he tied his shoes and ventured out into the cold night. At a nearby bus stop, he clutched a picture he had drawn of himself and his mother. Memories of her abandonment flooded his mind. She had left him with tears in her eyes, saying she could no longer care for him. As he sat on the bench, Haku noticed a woman who resembled his mother walking with a man. His heart leaped with hope. He rushed to her, grabbing her hand. "Mom!" he exclaimed with joy. But his face fell when she turned around. It wasn't her. The woman scowled. "What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. "Your clothes are filthy. Why are you out here at this hour?" The man with her pulled her away, muttering, "Let's not get involved with him." Haku apologized repeatedly, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't look at me with those cold eyes," he begged, but his plea went unanswered. As the sun rose, a little girl approached him. "You'll die out here if you stay like this," she said, tossing him a neck warmer. Surprised, Haku looked up. It was a young girl. She smiled gently, handing him an umbrella. "At least this will help a little." She bid him farewell and started to leave. Confused, Haku called after her. "Wait, who are you?" She turned back with a smile. "I'm Miriam." Back in the present, Haku remained frozen in place. His mind raced. He needed to escape and save Miriam. He can't just stand here. But he was already losing consciousness, his breath shallow and cold. Suddenly, warmth surged through him, and the ice around him began to melt. With a loud bang, the ice shattered completely. Haku gasped, looking around in shock. Fire? Who could have done this? A man clad in yellow stood before him, smirking. Well, the man said. "They always say there's a beautiful woman frozen beneath the ice. Didn't expect it to be you, though." The masked man asked Haku, "It's now warm, isn't it?" Upon seeing the masked man, Haku was surprised. He thought, "This guy is wearing a mask too, just like me." He was about to ask who the man was when suddenly, the fire the man used to unfreeze the ice flared up. It wasn't turned off, and the fire burned Haku. He yelled out in pain, but the man quickly extinguished it. He apologized, saying he was bad at controlling his fire. Now feeling better, Haku asked, "Who are you?" With a smile, the man told Haku to memorize this and listen well. "This handsome man's name is Zhang Yan, and we'll be calling him Yan." He continued, "Who he is a secret. Since mysterious men are popular, he decided to be mysterious." He apologized for the bad timing, but asked if Haku knows the girl with the yellow bandana. Upon hearing this, Haku was shocked. What the hell? He quickly grabbed his mask, getting into a fighting stance, thinking, this guy must be after Miriam too. After putting on his mask, Haku's anger flared. He yelled, "Why is all this happening? Why is everyone after Miriam?" With that, he tried to punch the man. But the man stood unfazed, even about to light a cigarette. "What are you trying to do?" he asked. "There seems to be a misunderstanding." Haku didn't listen. He charged forward, but Yan swiftly evaded the attack, sending Haku flying to the ground. He then said, "You're not using your mask properly. You still have a long way to go to master it." As Haku lay on the ground, he thought, what the hell is this guy? He blocked his attack without even using his mask. How strong is he? Yan sat on him. "Who are you to the girl?" he asked, sitting on Haku's stomach. He repeated the question, pressing for an answer. After a short pause, Haku responded, "This has nothing to do with you." Yan then stood up and asked if he's in love with the girl. Haku blushed, embarrassed and speechless. He couldn't even make eye contact. Looking around, Yan noticed signs of a fight, meaning they must have fought here. "Did someone steal the girl from you? If so, it seems they're after the same thing. They're in the same boat." He stretched out his hand and said, "Let's go together, partner." Haku froze, startled. No one had ever taken him as a partner. He quickly declined. "No, it's not possible. He can't fall for such a tempting offer." He said he don't know who's an enemy or an ally. Even the people closest to him are betraying him. He turned down the handshake, then added, "It's not necessary for them to be partners, and if Yan is after Miriam, they'll be enemies, not friends." Just as they were talking, a group of police officers arrived, shouting, "There he is, arrest him!" Haku cursed under his breath. Damn it, these police are relentless. But Yan started laughing, asking, "What's the matter, are you a criminal too?" He then informed Haku, "Those police aren't after you, they're after me." He chuckled. They're persistent though, seems like they have the same enemies. It's now Haku's choice. Either they join forces and fight them together, or they separate and get taken down one by one. He smiled. "What will you do?" Haku looked at Yan's smile and thought back to how everyone had always looked at him, back when he was small, even up till now. His adopted parents, his adopted brothers, they all looked at him with disdain. But Yan's eyes, they're not eyes of distrust, they're eyes of partnership. Haku exhaled. "All right, we'll fight together." With a smile, Yan responded. Then the alliance is formed. He promised to teach Haku how to properly use his mask. Meanwhile, the leader of the police officers shouted for his colleagues to prepare to fire. The officers set their guns and aimed, but is this really going to be a gunfight? As they all stood ready, Jan began using his mask. With a bang, he unleashed his skill, Fire Demon. As the police opened fire, all the bullets melted before reaching him. Haku was stunned, thinking, "This guy is so powerful that his heat even melts bullets." Yang then said that he knew our MC must have thought the mask only enhanced physical abilities, but he would show him something beyond that. With a small gesture, Jan's body erupted in flames. He then revealed that his own mask was called the Single-Layer Face. Upon seeing this, the entire group of police officers knew what was about to happen. They yelled in unison, warning each other not to let Jan do what he was about to do. With another burst of flames, a long sword emerged from Jan's mouth. As he wielded it, he told Haku to listen to the voice of the cursed mask and awaken its power. Jan then began slicing through the officers like paper, cutting them down in an instant. The heat from his fire was so intense it felt like hellfire, though I will never be there. Our MC watched with awe as the battle raged on. He was like, "So this is the true power of a mask." He was starting to realize just how powerful Jan truly was. After consuming the officers with his flames, Jan turned to Haku and said, "We should go now. From here on, he will teach him how to use the mask while chasing after Miriam. Their power has no limits, and they're only getting started." The two of them hopped onto Jan's bike, speeding off to track down Miriam's captors. Jan pushed the bike to its maximum speed, his face set with determination. As they rode, he made a phone call. "I'm counting on you," he said, hanging up shortly after. Haku, curious, asked, "Who were you talking to?" Jan simply replied, "Just a woman," before resuming his ride. He then continued, telling Haku that the girl they were after was likely up ahead. There was no time to waste, and Haku should pay attention as Jan began explaining the intricacies of using the max. "It looks like you've been using your max, but you're still far from mastering it," Jan said. He said that the name of our MC's mask is Cayman, known as the Mask of Calamity. When a person wears it, it transforms into a weapon of immense power. Where it came from and why it was made are still shrouded in mystery. There's still a lot they don't know about the mask, but what they know for now is that they both know how to use the mask at least. Jan said that the mask is genetically connected to its user, and when you understand that connection, your strength will grow. Haku, absorbing the information, nodded but remained silent. He was still processing everything. Jan continued, "Now, forget about the complicated stuff for a moment. He should focus on his connection with his max. If you want to grow stronger, you have to follow that link." As they sped along, Jan added, "The girl they're chasing is connected to Cayman, Miriam. She's more than she seems," but before Jan could tell our MC her true identity, they noticed police cars tailing them. Jan, frustrated, muttered, "Persistent bastards, they never give it a rest." Looking through the windshield, he spotted an ability user among the officers. "This could get messy," Jan said, his tone growing serious. Haku then spotted one officer using a mask. "That guy is also using a mask," he exclaimed. But Jan said, "No, that's just a replica. Something the government is experimenting with. It's not a true common mask." They were about to stop to confront the officers, but Haku urged Jan to keep going. With a swift motion, he jumped off the bike and into the air. Mid-flight, he shouted, "They should catch up to Miriam. He'll handle the police. Jan should keep going." As our MC prepared to fight, he recalled Jan's words about using the mask properly. He understood now that he needed to follow the connection with his mask. As he landed on the ground, an officer lunged at him, attempting a punch. Haku dodged it quickly, then sprinted toward the officer, ready to take action. As he flew up into the sky, Haku had only one thing on his mind: to block the passage for the policemen so they wouldn't be able to follow them again. With a bang, he activated another skill of the mask and smashed his hand onto the police car. The ground erupted, sending the police cars scattering, rendering them immobile. With another loud bang, the area exploded. The masked police officer who had fallen to the ground became enraged. "Damn brats. Don't underestimate me." He yelled for Haku to come out, but there was no need for him to call. Our MC was already sprinting toward him. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed the police officer by the face and removed his mask, leaving the officer in shock. Without wasting any time, Haku shattered the max and sprinted toward Jan, using his speed boots to quickly catch up. Jan, seeing him approach, grinned with satisfaction. "Well done, Haku," he said, praising him for handling the situation so quickly. As Haku hopped onto the bike, Jan asked, "When did he start using his mask?" Haku replied that it had been just last night. Yen's eyes widened, and he let out an exasperated, What the hell? His tone turned serious as he confronted Haku. Stop lying. There's no way he could adapt to the mask so quickly, especially in just one day. Jan muttered to himself. This boy's ability to adapt is insane. Normally, it would take years to reach this level of control with the mask. The officer took a picture from his pocket, an image of Miriam. He looked at it thoughtfully, then smiled. So for this girl, Haku unlocked the power of the mask. His luck is finally turning around. He's found a good partner. He then told Haku that he had forgotten to mention something important about Miriam. Upon hearing her name, Haku's interest piqued, and he asked, "What's that?" Jan teased him. "You respond so quickly when it's about Miriam, huh?" Jan then recalled his earlier question about why that girl was being targeted. He explained that in their world, Miriam is known as the first-generation child, and the heir to the original cursed mask. Our MC was puzzled and asked, "What the hell does first-generation child mean, and what's the original cursed mask?" Jan nodded. He don't know where the cursed mask is now, but the one they're wearing, the one he and Haku are wearing, is called the Forbidden Breed. Its power is still unknown, but the big shots are all after it. And Miriam, who can wear it, is an outrageous weapon right now. Haku's expression grew serious. "Please, stop calling Miriam that way. She's still human, not just some weapon." Jan sighed and apologized, but with a teasing smile he added, "It's rare these days to find someone so protective over a lady like her." He called Haku a clingy bastard. Haku then asked, "Are you disgusted by my clingy behavior?" Jan chuckled. "No, actually, I'm praising you. You're a man, aren't you?" As they continued their journey, Jan suddenly told Haku to look ahead. The wait is over. They've caught up with the people who took Miriam. They were getting closer now. Jan quickly briefed our MC on the plan. First, they destroy the transport vehicle. Second, they retrieve the girl. Both of them donned their masks and sprinted off. They reached the transport vehicle, and with a loud bang, they slammed into it, shattering it. Haku yelled for Miriam, hoping to see her inside, but what he saw was shocking. The people inside the van weren't who he expected. They were policemen with their guns drawn, pointing directly at them. Before they could react, the officers began shooting, and the area erupted in explosions. Haku and Jan immediately sprinted backward, using all their speed to escape the hail of gunfire. As the police officers descended upon them, among them was the police leader, whom Haku had previously defeated. With a smirk, he said, "We meet again, little brat." After donning his mask, he slammed his hand on the ground, taking a combat stance. Jan observed, "Wow, this police officer is pretty impressive for a replica." But they quickly realized they were standing on the main road. They didn't take much notice until another similar vehicle approached them. They dodged it just in time, the vehicle narrowly missing them. As it passed, they caught a glimpse of Urushi inside. This meant Miriam must be in that vehicle. Haku immediately told Jan that Miriam was likely in that vehicle and that he would go after it. Jan gave him permission, but cautioned him to be careful, as Urushi was probably too strong. As Haku prepared to leave, he wondered if Jan would be able to defeat all the enemies surrounding him. With a smile, Jan replied, "Who are you worrying about? You should be worried about yourself." With that, he took a skillful position and began attacking the police officers, flames blazing around him. Jan, pulling off his yellow jacket, handed it to Haku. "Wear this. It'll get cold at dawn," he said. Our MC took it and began running toward the vehicle. But as he ran, the police leader yelled that he would handle Haku this time. Jan stopped him, saying, "Don't look away. Your opponent is me, not Haku." Jan then delivered a kick that could shatter a man's destiny. Turning to the officer, he said, "This is the adult playground. I hope you know not to chase after little kids and fight like a man." Meanwhile, inside the bus, Urushi received a call from her father. He asked if the first-generation child had been secured, as the superior had wished. Urushi answered affirmatively. Yes, the wish is fulfilled. His father then insisted, "Failure is not an option. Make sure you safely hand over Miriam, the first-generation child." At that moment, Miriam opened her eyes and asked for Urushi's true identity, and where he's from. With a smirk, Urushi replied that he's from the Military Intelligence Surveillance Bureau, Security Department. His age is the same as hers, and as she can guess, he's not just a mere student. He's been waiting for this genetic sprout for 6 years. He added that Miriam definitely has an idea of all these. Upon hearing the phrase, first-generation sprout, Miriam began to recall her past. She remembered when she was younger and had killed her father with her own hands. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered to herself, "No, that wasn't me. It was my other self." The memories of that event caused her great distress. "She don't want that other self to ever come out again," she sobbed. She continued to cry and wondered, "Is this okay? If she keep controlling herself, keeping that other self from coming out, will no one else have to be hurt? Suddenly their vehicle was struck, causing it to tumble. They looked in the direction of the attack, wondering who it could be. Urushi, now wearing his mask, growled, "That fool doesn't know his place. He'll take care of him this time." Turning to Miriam, he said, "From now on, no matter what happens to you or your friends, stay inside the car. Do not step out." At the car's entrance, they noticed the attacker was Haku. Miriam called out his name, asking him why he was doing this. She told him he shouldn't go this far just for her, that her life shouldn't concern him. Urushi muttered, "What a pity. So he went through all this trouble just to come this far." Urushi yelled that outsiders like Haku should leave quickly. However, our protagonist didn't mind what they were all saying. He simply asked Miriam if she wished to be taken away by him. In a serious tone, he asked her if she really wanted to be caught like this, in bondage, in prison. Miriam couldn't reply. Her silence spoke louder than words. Noticing this, Haku then said, "If that's the case, they should both go home together," as he clenched his fists, ready to fight. But before he could move, a burst of ice, faster than light, came toward him. It turned out to be Urushi, launching a ferocious attack. Urushi coldly stated that those words Haku had just spoken would be his parting words. Apparently, Haku didn't understand the meaning of those words, and thus he was struck down by the ice. The ice exploded beyond the surrounding. The blast reverberated through the structure, causing a loud scream that echoed throughout the area. With a loud bang, Urushi used an ice spell, but our MC dodged it quickly and leaping into the sky. His kick almost landed, but it was narrowly avoided as the ice attack came for him. In anger, Haku shattered the ice. However, Urushi was relentless, continuing his assault without giving Haku a moment to breathe. Haku had no choice but to flee, dodging the sharp ice projectiles. As he lost his balance, Urushi sent a heavy kick toward him. Just as the kick was about to land, another eye unlocked on our MC's mask. With a loud bang, he blocked the powerful spell, one that could have killed even the strongest of foes. Urushi sighed, calling Haku a brainless fool who could only run. But Haku wasn't simply running. He knew that if Urushi's attacks hit him directly, he would be frozen, and the fight would be over. However, he could barely avoid the relentless attacks. The problem was that our MC didn't know how to counter an ice-based attack. As he tried to think of a way to fight back, Urushi asked Haku why he was going this far. Why was a male supporting character like him so fixated on Miriam? Was he interested in her power? Haku boldly replied that he didn't care about such things, whether it was power or weapons. All that mattered to him was that he wouldn't leave the person who stood by him during his lowest moments. He would never leave Miriam alone, and he must protect her. Haku said someone as fortunate as Urushi would never understand what Miriam meant to him. Urushi, enraged, called Haku a mediocre person who couldn't even wield a weapon properly. He couldn't stand the fact that Haku was here, fighting him, showing responsibility and standing against the past he had lived through, a past that was nothing like Urushi's own. In his fury, Urushi decided he would cut off Haku's legs so he won't be able to run again. With a change in aura, Urushi began casting a powerful spell called Second Crown. In an instant, a powerful ice sword emerged in his hand called the Frozen Manjusaka. The Frozen Manjusaka, named after the red spider lily, is often associated with myths, death, and the afterlife in East Asian culture. Meanwhile, on the other battlefield, Yan had already defeated all the police officers. He sat atop their leader, using his flames to light up a cigarette. Seeing him light a cigarette, the police officer asked Yan for just only one cigarette. As he looked closer at Yan's face, the officer called him a bastard. He then said he remembered that face in the yellow coat. He had definitely seen Yan somewhere before. The officer asked if he wasn't that nerdy guy, and claimed to know Yan is also after Miriam. Yan playfully bounced his stomach in a way that seemed to tell the officer to shut up and stop talking. The officer yelled, saying he hated brats like Haku and Miriam, but he hoped Yan understood that Urushi, the one Haku was fighting right now, was on a whole other level. Urushi was strong. He is the director, the commander of their police force. The officer stated that in a one-on-one fight, Yan wouldn't stand a chance against Urushi. Urushi was of royal blood, chosen blood that had been trained until it was soaked in darkness. An extraordinary natural talent. Meanwhile, back at Haku's side, Urushi had already stabbed Haku and beaten him black and blue. As Haku lay on the ground, breathing heavily, Miriam yelled at him, telling him to stop fighting and just retreat. But Haku, drained of strength, couldn't even muster the energy to speak. Urushi walked toward him, calling Haku a mere nobody. It seemed Haku had greatly misunderstood. Urushi didn't know what Haku was to Miriam, but he had no interest in whatever it was. He had been waiting for Miriam to awaken for years, for the greater good of this world, a world Haku didn't belong in. This was far beyond Haku's level, and he better die in shame. Urushi called him an insolent fool, but as Haku lay in his pool of blood, something began to change. He wondered what the hell was going on. His blood and the wound in his stomach no longer hurt. When the pain became overwhelming, it simply faded away. It was the first time he had ever realized this. Now, he could see it all. Meanwhile, on the other battlefield, Yan told the officer that he knew Urushi was extraordinary and very powerful. But he hoped the officer understood that Haku was a persistent brat who wouldn't give up easily. Yan added that Haku was also quite extraordinary in his own way. Suddenly, Haku stood up. Upon seeing this, Urushi was shocked and cold sweats ran down his spine. He wondered what the hell was going on with this guy. After losing so much blood, Haku was still able to stand, like a lifeless zombie. But something was happening within Haku. Another mark on his eye began to unlock. Seeing Haku stand, Miriam herself was shocked. Tears flowed from her eyes as she begged him to stop. Everything that was happening, he should just stop. She didn't want it to go on like this. She began recalling her childhood, when she had killed her parents with her own hands. After killing her mother had still stood up, resurrected like a zombie. It turned out that her mother too had similar powers. Her mother walked toward her, cold-blooded. Back in the present, Miriam, tears streaming down her face, begged that no one else get hurt because of the power inside her. She knew the truth about her identity. There were two people inside her, a man she had been suppressing since childhood, a person she did not want to unleash. This was the same person, the same power everyone was after. As another eye unlocked on Haku's face, Urushi looked at him and finally understood. The cursed mask Haku bore were in the way. Urushi said that now he understood what was happening. The cursed mask Haku was wearing was the source of his atrocious strength and the reason he kept being revived. So, Urushi decided to destroy the mask first, before he could kill Haku. However, our MC clutched the wound in his stomach, feeling the slight pain. He whispered to himself that he couldn't win like this. Yan, the friend he had just made, had mentioned it before they started. Yan had said that if he broke the connection to the mask and severed the bond, Haku would lose his power. But as he was thinking nothing but thoughts, Urushi had already launched an attack, his sword aimed to pierce our MC's eye. In a flicker of motion, Haku dodged just in time. Urushi exclaimed, "Wow, Haku reacted fast," but that's all he could amount to. He couldn't counterattack, and in that moment, he sent a powerful kick laced with an ice pearl, sending our MC flying several meters away. With a mocking smile, Urushi sneered. So even the cursed mask Haku wears is a failure, just like him. Urushi summoned a massive ice sickle, which shattered Haku's body. Then he conjured a large ice thorn that shot from the sky, piercing through our MC's body. "Time for Haku to die," Urushi muttered. Upon seeing this, Miriam screamed, ordering Urushi to stop. She begged him not to go so far, but Urushi, without hesitation, unleashed 1,000-iced sword strike. The blade sliced through Haku's stomach, blood spilling out. Slowly, Haku's eyes began to close as he crashed to the ground with a loud bang. Miriam watched helplessly, her tears flowing freely. She knew she was powerful, but she couldn't use her abilities. If she unlocked her powers, they could cause immense destruction in the world, so she had chosen not to use them. Not now, anyway. With a sharp turn, Urushi sneered. What a waste of time. He shouldn't have spent so much effort dealing with trash like Haku. Just as he turned to leave, Haku, who seemed on the verge of death, managed to grab Urushi's leg. Urushi, irritated by Haku's persistence, said, "I'll give him credit for that. At least he dared to fight someone like me. He's definitely worth something." Urushi raised his sword, preparing to land the final blow. "Haku must pay for his arrogance with his life," he declared. As the sword descended toward our MC, Miriam cried out, and suddenly a memory resurfaced in her mind. She remembered being a child in tears, held tightly by her mother. Her mother had whispered, "Listen carefully, Miriam. One day, you'll meet a friend you'll want to be close to. When that happens, you and your friend will share the same feelings. Whatever they feel, you'll feel too. Just like when someone tastes something good or bad. You'll share it, splitting it in half." Just as Urushi's sword was about to strike, the unexpected happened. Miriam took the blow for Haku. Her body was impaled, and blood gushed from her wounds. In a state of shock and fear, Miriam fell into Haku's arms. She looked up at him, her voice weak. "I don't regret it," she whispered. "What she believes is to save. And Haku has been trying to protect her all this time." She apologized for all the pain and suffering he had endured on her behalf. I'm sorry. All the pain, all the suffering. I'll share it with you, she said, and with those words, she fell to the ground. Urushi, filled with anger and confusion, yelled, "What the hell did she just do? He never planned to kill her. Why would she protect someone like Haku?" But it was too late. Our MC has already lost all emotions. He couldn't think of anything except the fact that Miriam's blood was on his hands now. With anger, he clenched his fist and the whole area around him vibrated as multiple eyes began appearing on his mask and multiple skills unlocked. In anger, he yelled, forgetting the fact that he has been stabbed so many times. He gave Urushi a devastating punch.